I'd like to call this meeting of the Internal Services and Government Oversight Committee joint meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is to adopt the agenda. Thank you. Commissioner Romano and Zinner made the motion and supported adopting the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of the Joint Internal Services and Government Oversight Committee from July 13th. Do I hear a motion?
So move, Hall. Support, Romano.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall and Romano made the motion and supported it to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
Song votes yes.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Next is public participation. This is the first opportunity for public participation for anyone who chooses to speak on any item on today's agenda for a maximum of 3 minutes. Later in the meeting, there'll be a second public participation for those who wish to speak on any subject at all. Anybody public participation on the agenda? Public participation on the agenda items. Thank you. We'll close public participation and move into internal services. 6A under internal services is Bernco Incorporated Building Repairs for the Administration Building.
Chair, I'll make the motion we take A and B together to refer to full board.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Support.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall made the motion. Commissioner Romano supported to do 6A and B. Lynn?
This item involves repairs to the front entrance of the administration building, and this is largely in part to a vehicle ramming the front main entrance area. Upon completion of design specifications, the purchasing department solicited bids on the Minton site. 437 vendors were notified, 35 vendors viewed the documents, and one sealed bid was received and publicly read by purchasing on July 21st, 2022. We are requesting authorization to execute the contract with Bernco in the amount of $319,600. This includes acceptance of alternate one, which is actually a deduct of $34,000. And this deduct, rather than replace the revolving door with another revolving door, we're going to have installed 2 main entry doors. Also, we are recommending acceptance of alternate 2, and that is an add of $6,600, and that's for additional curtain wall that needs to be removed. And the curtain wall is actually like putting puzzle piece together. So in order to replace the damaged area, we actually have to remove the undamaged area. And looking at this section, we believe it's necessary that they remove more of the curtain wall in order to put the glass in. Now, obviously, when they start the project, we will be reviewing that, and certainly if there's a way to install it without removing that additional section, then we won't remove it, and therefore you won't incur that expense. Funding for this project is out of the General Liability Internal Services account.
Thank you, Lynn. Commissioner Hall?
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Len.
Hi.
Certainly, this is needed.
Yes.
Looking at that area down there, not only looks like it got hit by a car, it looks like it got hit by a bomb. Is the individual that did this culpable for any of this cost?
I would definitely be deferring to John Anderson regarding insurance. So certainly our carrier is aware of the claim. Now, whether they try and go after the other insurance company, if there is an insurance company involved. But I can talk to John Anderson further and supply you with more information.
Thank you. Lastly, in many entrances, they have put up the cement-type barriers out in the sidewalk area to prevent vehicles from coming in. Are we giving any thought to doing that?
Not in this project, but certainly we can look at that. It's hard to defend against intentional acts like this, but we can certainly take a look at that.
I would highly recommend that. To get a vehicle through those cement barriers is virtually impossible. Not to say that this is a common act that takes place, but we ought to use all preventive measures we can to ensure it doesn't happen again.
We will certainly look at that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Yeah, thank you. Vice Chair Haas said pretty much the same thing. I wanted to go after the insurance company, the person who was driving the car, if he had insurance, and do that. In Washington, D.C., every building has those cement abutments out there to protect you. We thought about that after that explosion in the middle of the country. What was that building? But in any case, so thank you. And we'd like you to let us know what the impact was on John Anderson's response.
Certainly.
We'd appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, please vote 6A and B.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. 6C, proposal from Partners in Architecture PLC, Professional Architecture Engineering Design Services for the Office of Public Defender Renovation project in the Clemens Center for $114,450. Lynn? Excuse me. Motion to pass the full board?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Zong made the motion, supported by Commissioner Ha, to move the full board. Lynn?
We're requesting authorization to exercise the professional services proposal submitted by Partners in Architecture for the renovation of vacant space at the Clemens Center for the purpose of housing the Office of Public Defender. This renovation project entails approximately 7,400 to 7,800 square feet, and it would provide sufficient space for current operations and also their future needs by providing adequate space for attorneys, interns, support staff. They also have a great need for meeting space and also training areas that they would utilize for interns, investigators, social workers. This project also is a step towards satisfying the constitutionally mandate of providing indigent legal services, legal defense services for criminal cases. The professional services provided by Partners in Architecture would be conceptual design, design development, and construction document. It is that phase that purchasing would obtain the necessary documents to go out for sealed bids on the Mitten site. They also do work as it pertains to the bidding phase. They will attend the pre-construction or the pre-bid meeting. They conduct the post-bid interviews with the low bidders. They also will provide a letter of recommendation. And then there's also the construction administration phase. And this is the phase that probably where most of the activity occurs. They will be reviewing shop drawings throughout the project. They certify these shop drawings. They attend construction progress meetings, which are generally every 2 weeks, depending on the activity. Sometimes they're every week. They will review and certify monthly pay applications from the general contractor. They will generate towards the end of the project a punch list. And that's the items that are not to the satisfaction of the owner. And they follow up to make sure that these items are corrected. They also will issue the document of substantial completion, and they also administer the closeout process. And that is to make sure that we have all the shop drawings, we have the as-built drawings, we have all the warranties, and also that we will have the operations and maintenance manuals. Funding for this professional services design service is available from the MIDC grant, which is a state grant. And therefore, we are requesting authorization to execute this proposal submitted by Partners in Architecture in the amount of $114,450, which includes $1,000 in reimbursable expense and $3,500 in case they need a structural engineer. Now, certainly if they don't need the engineer, we will not be invoiced for that. And the reason for the structural engineer is they need to do a code analysis, and they have to see if we are meeting the ventilation standards. And if they have to put an additional unit up on that roof, they're going to check the loading, and if it needs reinforcement, the structural engineer would be designing that.
Thank you. Commissioner Matusik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Lynn. This may not be your question to answer, but I'm going to throw it out here anyway. In the current year's budget, given money from the state, we proposed or we agreed to hiring a whole bunch of new public defenders. Are those folks on staff? And if they are, where are they working now?
Fortunately, Mr. Tomko is here from Public Defender.
Thank you. Thomas Tomko from the Public Defender's Office. To answer your question, with the space we had, we didn't have room for the additional hires, so
Right.
they were simply not hired.
Okay.
So there's a process that was adjusted in our personnel count. So, but those folks, if the construction is completed, they would be included in the next year. We don't anticipate construction being completed until late in the third, maybe the fourth quarter, and that would be the first time that those folks would be considered for hiring.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6D, we'll move on to information technology, maintenance agreement for third quarter 2022 for a total of $389,023. Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Farrington, made the motion to move to full board. Jaco?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is the regular maintenance items we bring to you pretty much every month. The three that we have today is Duo Security, which is what we use for two-factor authentication. I'm sure you're very familiar with that. Checkpoint Security, which is our firewalls that we use for the county. It is Checkpoint firewalls, and then Managed Firewall, which is a service that we buy from our security vendor that monitor our firewalls 24/7. So that when my staff is, for example, after hours not available, and there's anything that happens, any anomalies, they will let us know, and then we can take corrective action, because we do have an after hours on call. And that's the three items for security maintenance.
Thank you. excuse me. I see no speakers. Please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. Item 6G, contract for ImageSoft Incorporated, OnBase unit client upgrade and workflow implementation for $609,570. We just did that. Excuse me, my mistake. I'd like to take items E and F together. For Capital Improvement Fund, eTech Environment Health Accela Integration Phase 2 for $136,800.
So moved. I'll support.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Farrington, supported by Commissioner Zai to move the full board for 6E and F. Jacob?
Thank you, Commissioners. This is the second phase of the Accela project for environmental health. We came to this board, I think, around about 2018 or 19 with a three-phased project to implement this for environmental health. The project had some uphill battles throughout. One of them, when COVID hit, we were making good progress, and then COVID came, and we had to halt the project. The vendor that we secured or procured during the original RFP, after COVID, when they came back, did not perform to satisfaction. They had no PM on the project manager, and they also didn't provide deliverables to expectation. So at some point, we decided not to move forward anymore with that company, and engaged in doing most of the work ourselves, as well as engaging a company that we've used at Public Works in Accela. Public Works use Accela as well, a company called eTech, and they helped us. The company is very knowledgeable and been doing great work for us. And it's for that reason that I'm asking for a sole source in this project, so that we can move this project forward. As you can see, it's been a long time outstanding. This phase will implement things like point of sale, complaints and violation, and other record types. Tom Barnes from Environmental Health is here as well with me today, so he can speak maybe more to the business case of this.
Thank you. Seeing no speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. Now we'll get to 6G. ImageSoft Incorporated OnBase Unity Client Upgrade and Workflow Implementation for $609,570. Do I have a motion to move to full board?
So move on.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Hawes, supported by Commissioner Wallace to move this 6G to full board. Jacob?
Commissioners, this is a project for the Friend of the Court. They have been on our document management system, OnBase, longer than anybody else in the county, but they never had workflows that goes with it. And what we want to do now is implement workflows for them, and also changing the licensing type to be the same as what we have for the courts. Tom Bloom from Friend of the Court is here with me today, to answer any business questions.
Thank you. Again, no speakers. Please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. Item 6H, budget amendment for capital improvement plan. Dell financing PowerMax payment, 4 of 5 payments for $329,562.24. Do I have a motion to move to full board? Full board. Thank you. Support. Thank you. Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Sabatini, to move 6H to full board. Jaco?
This is a 0% interest payment that we've been doing since 2019 when this originally came to the board. It was to purchase the arrays, which is the servers that run all our virtual servers in our environment. And this is, as Commissioner stated, the 4th payment of 5 payments. I'm sorry. Of 5 payments. So it is in this year's capital plan, and next year will be the last payment.
Thank you. Seeing no speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 13-0.
Thank you. 6I is a report on cyber insurance requirement overview, and I'd like a motion to receive and file.
So moved, Paul.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall, supported by Commissioner Romano, made a motion to receive and file. Thank you. Jaco?
Commissioners, I understand that this refers to the email that went out last Friday. And I know we angered a lot of people, and it's very unfortunate because that was not our intent. We knew that was going to happen. But the situation was that in pretty much from last Friday, about 10 days before that, we were notified. What we do is every year when cyber insurance comes up, they provide us a document that we have to complete, answer questions, send back to them. We did that, and at that time they came back and asked us a bunch of questions, follow-up questions. So we send them the document, the follow-up questions. And this went back and forth a few times. And eventually they told us that there's 3 things that they would like us to implement. That the way we have that implemented today is not to their satisfaction, and they want us to, and it's all around authentication to cloud systems, any system that, and I'm talking about the email cloud systems. When you authenticate to those, that there has to be 2-factor authentication in place. And then we started developing in that short time solutions for 3 different email systems. As we know, we have Google, we have an on-prem system in Exchange for Department of Roads, and then we have an Office 365 or a cloud version for the Sheriff's Office. It turns out that the solutions for the Sheriff's Office as well as Department of Roads was much more straightforward and easier for us to do. And we were able to complete those by the middle of last week, and that went pretty well. The more difficult one was the Google one. And it especially came into play with so many people having access from their personal phones or personal devices to county email. And that's one of the things they said needs to be authenticated with 2-factor authentication. It's difficult for us to just blanket everything, or it's easier for us, let me put it that way, to blanket everything than it is to do specific solutions for specific people. Because if you have time, when you roll out a project like this, if you have time to do that, then we can gather requirements from people and find out what the best way is. But we're dealing with people in a union environment, for example, that has personal phones that refuse to use their personal phones, which is their right. And others that are fine with doing this. And the best way possible we could do this was doing it the way that we did it. In hindsight, I don't know that there's much that we could have done differently. We had until Friday, end of day, to either lock people out or you enroll in, in this authentication method. And that's pretty much, what the situation was. So, obviously sorry that it caused concerns and difficulties, but I can assure you that we are available and will work with each and every one to do whatever you want to do if you're not sure how to take the next step.
Thank you. Commissioner Zong?
Thank you, Chair. Jacob, I really appreciate your due diligence in quickly getting all of this together in compliance. So thank you for your effort on that part. I also understand the aspect of employees, refusing to use their personal devices because, I think myself and all of us, we personally use our own devices to access our emails. And I could see, down the line, all of these requirements that we have would almost require each of us to have county-issued devices. Because going through that sheet that was emailed to us, I'm hesitant to go through that process on my personal phone. So I've just made the decision to not check my county email on my phone and just do it, from my desktop. So that's my experience with it. I just want to see if staff could include the email as part of an attachment in the civic clerk, just so that we have that document publicly available. If that's okay, Jaco, the email that talks about the cyber insurance requirement as well as the steps, the document that was sent to us.
I just want to, if you say, this is a public forum, so obviously one of the things I cannot do is talk in detail about what we do. Because that would be a violation in itself of our cybersecurity policy. But
sure, and if the document that we received is something that would impose on that security, maybe just an overview of the cyber insurance requirement, because this recommendation sheet doesn't tell us anything at all right now, and that's nothing on you at all.
The cybersecurity requirement get very specific about what we want to do. And that kind of information I don't want to, reveal publicly because, it puts us at a disadvantage right there. But I'm willing to talk to commissioners. I had Commissioner Van Sickle was out at our office and we talked about cybersecurity and so forth. And I mentioned to him that there are certain things that I obviously cannot talk to him about. But there's other things like, for example, if people are CJIS certified, which is a law enforcement requirement, and so forth, then I can reveal some of that information to them. I cannot do it, otherwise I violate CJIS regulations. So I got to be very careful how I communicate that. But I would like to look at the document again and just make sure that there is no violation from
All
that
right,
standpoint.
thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you. Jacob, mine's just been forwarded this whole time for 10 years to my personal Gmail. And I know that opens that up to FOIA. If somebody wants to know which shoes I ordered at Kmart, they're welcome to see my email, because there's literally, I have no personal emails in there. It's shopping online and things like that. But I don't go into that it's always been forwarded. So, and I had one day to get up here and I could not get up here. So I think I'm just locked out at this point.
Yeah.
I think that's where it stands.
You will just be locked out. So, like I said, Commissioner, we can either call you if that's what you want, or you can call our help desk and they will walk you through the process.
And then I think that on other things, I have to do the authentication the 2 times.
Yeah,
There were other things in your email that were more of a concern with respect to the personal device, so we could talk about that later.
absolutely.
But otherwise, I guess I just won't get county email, so.
I can assure you, my phone is also my personal phone. I don't use a county cell phone because I don't want to carry 2 phones. And it's installed on my phone, and I am fine with that. But I understand that people have concerns. Just want to explain something to everyone. When it comes to our county information, my staff has privileged access to many things. If they really want to, they can probably get into anything that's on the network. But they're not allowed to do that, right? That's what privileged access means. That to me is zero tolerance. If I find somebody that do something like that, the consequences will be severe. So my staff knows that. I grew up in that environment. I was one of those guys that configured these things for the county. You just don't go into stuff. The only time they can do that is if you put in a ticket and you ask us, can you help me with, a simple example would be this document. It says it's corrupt, but I need to access it. And they get it to work. At some point in time, they need to look at the document to make sure it's not corrupt anymore, right? So they can give it back to you in a scenario like that. But there will be a registered ticket where you requested them to access that document, right? So it was done officially.
We
There's
might
no
be
way
talking
that-
about, yeah, we might be talking about different things,
No,
so.
what I'm trying to tell you is that my staff's not allowed to do anything or access anything. Same way, this software that we installed, Meraki, the sole purpose of installing Meraki is so that we can lock your phone out, your personal phone, in case you try to log into Google. If we don't have that ability, then we are not satisfying their requirements. And that is really the main
Is that
reason
like
we
if
have to do
somebody
that.
was an employee and then is no longer an employee? Is that the type of situation?
It's that situation, or you lose your phone and you ask us, can you do something about it? We can at least remove the county data from that phone.
Oh, okay, because I was thinking, I'm not telling you if I lose my phone. All right.
No, I
All right,
understand.
I'm going to
but-
have to call you because I don't even go on to there, so.
Yeah.
All right, thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Matusik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jaco, I have the phone, I have the iPad, I have the desktop, I have the laptop. I access from everywhere, all the time. I'm comfortable with what you did. I'm all about the 2 or 3 step verification process on everything. I have the little authenticator app. I'm good with that. I don't actually have a problem with any of this. I am concerned, however, that we have a motion on the floor to receive and file a blank document. We need something to receive and file. So take what you have, turn it into a general statement about county security and security policy, but there has to be something to actually receive and file. That's my concern with this discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I would suggest Jaco's verbal report in the minutes would be received and filed.
I would disagree with that. I think we are receiving and filing a document, as we are with everything else. The veterans report yesterday, the proposals.
Okay, Jaco, can you supply something?
Yes.
Thank you.
May I, just point of information?
Certainly.
Just for a point of information, I raised that when I first got on the board, and it was the board's position they're receiving and filing a presentation, so I lost on that issue. And then one day, the guy stood up and said, I have no report, and they did a receive and file on that. I just started laughing and voted no. But the board had determined at that point The presentations are a receive and file, just so you know it had been raised. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Zong, are you
I have
again?
another question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Jacob, I don't know if you can answer this question, but what is your solution for those that have refused to access their email?
They just cannot access it. At this point in time, the
And
only
and
solution is
specifically employees who still have to do their job.
if they have to use a personal phone to do their job, they will have to authenticate, right? That to me is if that is a requirement, then that person either need to get a county cell phone or something to do that. I cannot make that decision. That is for that department.
You haven't
to decide.
encountered that since Friday.
No,
Correct.
I mean, I have people that's upset about the fact that they cannot access it, or they want different solution for that. But I don't have a different solution at this point in time. And with the short time that we had to implement it, I either had to cut people out, or, people have to enroll. And that's the solution at this point in time. As this becomes, one thing I talked to Commissioner Van Sickle on Friday, we pushing out our RFP for switching our environment to Exchange so that everybody is on the same mail system. Once that has happened, it'll be significantly easier for us to accommodate that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Sabatini?
Thank you, Chair. Hey, Jaco. In regards to that, because that was actually going to be my question in regards to when we're going to switch over to the Exchange platform. What's the timeline on that? And if someone doesn't authenticate on the Google system, would they have to redo it on the Exchange side? And how is that different compared to the Google side?
Well, on the Exchange side, we don't have to install Meraki.
Okay.
So we just two-factor authenticate you with Duo, which
Okay.
is one of the items I had here earlier today. And that's it. But we cannot do that in Google.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, please vote.
Thank you, Jacob, for coming up and speaking on this. Appreciate it on relatively short notice. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion passes 13-0.
Thank you. At this point, we're going to turn the gavel over to Commissioner Haw for the Government Oversight Department recommendations.
Thank you, Chairman. Good meeting. I think Jaco made a great presentation and got a lot of things through. So I'm almost scared to call this one. First item is presentation. GCSI legislative update, a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Van Sickle, supported by Commissioner Nart. With that, Mr. Owens, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Nice to see everybody again. I brought a colleague of mine that I wanted to introduce, Samantha Zandy, who came to the team in 2020 and has worked alongside us on a number of issues, including some of the county work, and came to us from the Chief of Staff's office from the House Ways and Means Committee, and was in the House for a number of years. She's a lawyer, and we're very happy to have her, and she'll try to keep me out of trouble here and in other places. So generally, I would say that it's been a really slow time in Lansing for the past 6 months, a year, maybe more. I think that's a natural progression of split government. You don't see a lot of the times when Commissioner Farrington was serving in the legislature and under Governor Snyder, where they had all three chambers with the Senate, House, and Governor's office, and every policy bill that came through had a chance to live and was negotiated through, et cetera. I think 95% of the bills that have, broad sweeping policy implications right now in Lansing. There may be hearings, there may be movement from one chamber to the other, but for the most part, don't end up getting signed. I think you see some of that in really broad policies. The last one I would say that would be in that category would almost be the no-fault insurance reform that we saw early in the governor's term. That was bipartisan and relatively controversial over the years and got through. I think the vast majority of concentration in Lansing has been on the budget. There's been more money in Lansing than ever before, money flowing in from the feds and partially because of COVID and acts that came after. And it certainly has been almost 100% of the focus that we've had on behalf of the county. Last time we were here, we laid out some of those priorities. And when I say priorities, I should say that these are things that came from the countywide elected officials together, in addition to individual members here and the legislative delegation. Within that budget, we were really successful this last pass-through as a county. The county, if you will remember, for several years has been working with the state to fill the gap on the Innovate Mound project, which is almost a $200 million project. Feds put in a considerable amount. Obviously, the county put in a considerable amount. There was a $35 million gap, and we were successful finally in getting that filled, which was a big win and something that we advocated for probably 2 sessions, nonstop. $25 million for a new health department, and how that's laid out. You all would know much more than I would. Obviously, the Public Works Commissioner was successful. She certainly doesn't need any help advocating for anything that she wants, and was successful in getting 77+ million for underground infrastructure. And all of those things are on top of the regular budgetary things that kind of stayed flat and had some increases across the budget. The one piece that didn't make it in that we hope to get in yet this year is for the criminal justice stuff that includes the jail intake center, that I think has really wide support within the legislative delegation. It's just a matter of trying to fit it in. Billions of dollars were spent on top of the $62 billion annual budget that passed on July 1st, and the state held back another $7.5 billion that will yet to be spent between now and I think that some of the deadlines are around the end of 2024. Any questions on budget specific items before we go to some of the other general updates on Lansing?
I have a quick one. What do you think the chances of getting the jail intake center funding through this year?
It really depends on kind of the communication between the administration and the legislature. I haven't seen a transition that we're seeing right now because of the way that the lines have been redrawn. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but the legislative session days are so minimal, even though they may post as session days for true attendance and voting. I think there may be 2 in September, 1 in October, and then you get into lame duck last week in November and the first 2 weeks of December. They should be out by that December 16th date. So, for them to get a lot done in 10 days between now and the end of the year would be surprising. I think there will be a supplemental. There'll be a year-end opportunity. And if there's money, part of what we've been trying to do is to make sure that if other counties, if other interests are getting money, staying around the rim. That's been, for the last 2 years, there's been almost no focus on any sort of general policy changes that have major impacts. Now, that doesn't mean that legislative leadership and others want to tie a lot of policies to the money, right? We see that with the community mental health stuff that we're watching really closely. They want to move a community mental health supplemental, and they want to tie bar it to, and by say they, I should say Senate Majority Leader Shirkey is very open about it. He's introduced the bill himself. We've been working with Nick Shamatero on making sure that there's access and making sure that we're watching exactly what that looks like as it pertains to Macomb specific. But that's a policy that the only way he knows he could ever get it done would be to tie it to the money. So to answer your question in a long-winded way, I think if there is a supplemental with a lot of line items, I think we have a chance. If not, it'll be as long as the folks here direct it, will be at one of the top of the list for getting that final piece of the priorities. So a year and a half ago, Candace Miller, Mark Hackle, Tony Forlini brought bipartisan, both House and Senate delegation together and laid out these priorities as something that they wanted to go to Lansing cohesively and advocate for. That was the only piece that didn't make it. So, a lot of money, very successful. Mound Road was probably as big of an appropriation for a road project that was in there. I think Kent County had one other that competed, but a huge number for an individual road project.
Thank you. Maya, Commissioner Zoll.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a question about the budget, and I'm glad you brought up the Innovate Mound project because I wanted to get some clarification on that. I have reached out to my state senator, state reps, and no one really knows how to answer this question. Have you read the state budget in its entirety?
I mean, no. I don't think there's anybody that has.
Okay.
You have?
I have read it.
Okay. So in regards to the Innovate Mound project, nowhere in the state budget does it mention Innovate Mound. That money was allocated for Mound Road, $31 million. And last year, around this time, August 19th, the board passed an appropriation for $240 million for Innovate Mound from this year on through fiscal year 2021 to 2024. The county's portion was $61 million, with the other half between Warren and Sterling Heights. So I don't understand why there are those that are saying that this is gap funding, or that you just said that there's a $35 million gap in this project when we've already appropriated money for this project. So unless there was, a cost estimate that was severely wrong, or there were supplies that are now costing more, I would like to know if this $31 million is actually for Innovate Mound, or if it's just for Mound Road, according to the state budget. Because if that's the case, then I don't think that more money should be put towards Innovate Mound. I believe this money should be used to fix south of 696 on Mound Road. So I'd like for you to clarify that, if you can do that.
Sure. I mean, I would direct you to the Macomb County roads. I mean, Brian Santo would be a better person to answer how they plan to spend that money, and obviously the board's going to have a say in how that's appropriated. So that is certainly way above our
I think we
pay
already know
grade.
how they plan to use it. My question for you is regarding the budget that was passed by the state legislature regarding this $31 million.
Sure. So to answer your question, when we approached the legislature, this was all the way two maybe 3 years ago, I don't know, the first time, it was laid out with the money that came in from the feds, the money that came from the county and the cities, and there was a gap of somewhere around 35 million identified to fund the rest of that project. the entirety of the advocacy went to fill that gap. What the county does, because I know that it's relatively vague in the budget bill, what the county does is up to the county, right? And you can go back and forth with the state. I don't know that the state is going to meddle to say, oh, you spend it south or north or wherever. The 31 million is for you guys to spend, so.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Matuzak, is this a budgetary question? Maybe. Well, then, maybe go ahead.
It crosses a number of lines, and it will be very familiar to you all. Your firm is a multi-client firm. You work for lots of people, including the Detroit Zoo. I told you. We were promised a nature center. The words we get are that requires an appropriation from the state to make a reality. I would argue they promised it out of the millage money, but is there any news, word? Is this a priority? Is what's happening? I would like an update.
Sure. So you're absolutely right. We do represent the Detroit Zoo, and there's a new director with the zoo. So as of right now, honestly, I think she's getting her bearings about her to some extent on the project, what was promised, what was not promised, some different options in the county for locations. I know that she's done a variety of visits and meetings to determine that. So certainly it is on the top of their list. I know that they're still evaluating that.
It's been almost a year. She's running out of the new getting her bearings.
She started in November, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you, and that was the answer in the discussion we had. Same thing, when getting my bearings. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
So I was looking at the proposal on the term limits, and I understood the caveat for the people elected in 2022 to Senate to be so that people that had served 6 years in the House and were running for Senate still had the right to run twice, which would put them over the 12 years. I believe that was the rationale for it, correct? Mm-hmm. Now, I have a particular interest in this, but I'm reading this, and what it tells me is, so all of those people can serve 14 years. I can only serve the 12 that the new people, but I also cannot run 3 times for Senate the way anybody that's elected to the House or anybody that would run after me would be able to, correct? So it says...
No, you could run for Senate or you could serve 12 years in the Senate.
I don't think so. It said, except a person elected to Senate, specifically in 2022, may be elected to the number of times allowed when that person became a candidate. That's 2. So I don't know if that applies to anybody else.
No,
It's
I believe that you, when you became a candidate, that only impacts the first term, and then when you become a candidate again, that would impact it. So you would. It's my understanding that the incoming class in the 2022 Senate will be allowed to have 12 years. We can clarify that.
Yeah, could you get clarification?
Yeah.
And then I know, for example, folks coming into their 3rd term in the House will be able to run for another 8. They will have 8 more years for the completion of the 12.
The only reason I was fascinated was, wow, everybody behind me could do the 12 years in one place, and everybody ahead of me gets to do the 14 years, and I'm sitting right in the middle where I may not have that combination. So, all right, if you could check into that, because the wording on here tells me something different than what you're saying. Thank you.
I can tell you in my first term, we took a vote for a 10% pay cut. It wasn't applicable to anybody that was currently leaving, only the new people coming in. That was always a thought in my mind. So I see no other questions.
Okay.
So
if I just move on to just the general landscape, if that's all right,
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair. I think it's always important to talk a little bit about elections and just what we have, especially this year, because it will be absolutely the most pivotal time we've seen in Lansing in a long time because of the way the lines are drawn and how different the landscape will be. Obviously, every statewide official is up. All of the congressional delegation is up, and the entirety of the House and Senate are up. But for the first time, the lines have been drawn independently and make for just a very interesting few months here. I think why it's important to you and why it's important to us is those elections matter, and they matter to the way that we are able to approach the advocacy in Lansing. They matter to who's going to hold gavels in different committees from different areas, et cetera. I bring up a random example of Act 51 funding and future infrastructure funding. I think outstate representatives and senators, and I would dare to say, most of them being Republican outside of the current Democrat that serves in Marquette, have blocked any sort of change to Act 51 formula really since the Senate's been in Republican hands since 1983. And obviously before that, it's a very antiquated formula based on road miles that severely and negatively impacts Macomb County, right? That won't change depending on who's holding the gavel. And I'm not putting a value, positive or negative, on a million different things of who should win or lose. We will work with whoever wins. Right now you have a Senate Majority Leader from Jackson, a speaker from Clare. They have no interest in Southeast Michigan road funding at the expense of their constituents. And whether Republicans or Democrats win in the fall, Macomb will be very well suited. The delegation is really strong, top to bottom, but getting some of those folks, not only with a gavel in their hand as chair, but being able to coordinate a lot of those things will change based on who wins these elections. So we put the matchups in front of you guys so that you see the layout. Right now, the Senate has broke out 22-16 in favor of the Republicans. And as I said, the Republicans have held the Senate since the early 80s and have, had a big impact on drawing the lines since then. The Senate is going to be relatively tight because of the way the commission drew the new lines. They drew a new seat in Washtenaw, and they drew a new seat in Ingham County with higher Dem bases. If you just took those two and assumed that those two flipped, you could hypothetically just start at 18 Democratic seats and 20 Republican, meaning they would have one to give to tie, two to give to lose. Obviously, two big seats here in Macomb that are up that are going to have a major impact on who holds the gavel. There's a seat in Bay County that has a higher Democratic base. There's a seat in Rochester that's a probably lean Republican seat. There's a seat in Kent County that's very close, and then of course Muskegon and a couple others, and the Republicans are needing to win most of those to hold on to the majority. I wanted to mention that the House currently has a little bit more of a cushion and certainly more of a favorable lines, I would say, within the Lansing bubble. And I also should probably say that the Lansing bubble is wrong about every election always. So just put that in, the file here as we walk through it. But the general consensus is that it'll be very, very close on the Senate side, and that it would probably maintain majority for the Republicans on the House side. That is the Lansing bubble consensus. And the statewides aren't close right now, but those are going to have huge impacts down ticket and how the governor does statewide, and the AG and the Secretary of State. And so we watch those things very closely because it really does impact the way we're able to advocate on different issues and different areas. So those are in front of you. If there's any questions on the redistricting piece or any individual seat, we're happy to answer any questions just on elections between now and November.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a general comment that I think you started to touch on, but then you drifted away from the Macomb delegation specifically. what we're losing here. And it's not just based on the redrawing of the lines, it's because of term limits. So you're missing out on, Rep. Hornberger's termed out, Rep. Yarrick's termed out, Marino, Farrington. I mean, you have almost our whole delegation that's just going to be termed out, regardless of the lines being redrawn. And that's a huge detriment to us here in Macomb. I mean, we have the Speaker Pro Tem right now. I'm a little biased. She's my boss. But having somebody from Macomb in leadership makes a huge difference, and I've seen it firsthand. Having a rep from Macomb that knows the appropriations chair well, if we can't have the appropriations chair, makes a difference. These projects don't happen without those relationships. So we have a lot to adapt to coming up in this next cycle, not just new lines, but a ton of new representation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think that's dead on, and I would encourage everybody here to use some of that leverage that Macomb County has heading into November. I mean, the reality is that these statewide candidates and really folks running for legislative leadership need to spend time in Macomb. They need to understand it's not easy to get here if you're from the west side of the state. It's not even easy to get here if you're from Oakland County in places. I mean, it's, a lot of these folks are from up north. They're from the west side. They're fighting in those battleground seats, and they're spending time outside. And I would encourage all of you and as a group to get to know, more than just the incoming delegation, but for some of those folks to leverage the county with the governor, and the county in a lot of ways could decide the statewide election, could decide some other seats, and leveraging the county itself is important as folks look at the map and look, the saying, as goes Macomb, right, goes the state. So I think Commissioner Kraft's dead on it. It is important to rebuild from the current crew we have, especially in the House. So,
Thank you. Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Just Executive Hackel had said to me, for years, Macomb County's kind of been forgotten. Oakland County's been taken care of, Wayne County's been taken care of, and we've just been sitting here making our way and haven't gotten that preferential treatment out of Lansing. So it does, it will make a difference. Thank you.
Well, I'll take a little exception to that statement, because when Jeff and I were up there, many a time the speaker used the comment, those damn Macomb reps, because we stuck together and we fought for legitimate issues. So the fact that we're not getting the monies that some of the other counties are getting, I'd agree with that part. But we had great influence up there at that time.
Yeah, and I think that changed a lot this budget cycle. I think Macomb really stood out for these projects and got a lot of money that it hadn't gotten in the past. And again, I think Commissioner Farrington's a perfect example. If he wasn't the tax chair during the personal property tax debate, there would not have been counties like Macomb and other locals that would have had that hold harmless clause and some of those things. If that tax chair would have been from up north or somewhere else and wouldn't have the industrial base that Macomb had, it just wouldn't have, those things wouldn't have happened. So it really is important to get the right people in the right places.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to receive and file the presentation. Don't go away there, Mr. Owens. I've got another item for you here. Stay right there. The next item on the, what was the vote?
Motion passes 13-0.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Resolution 2022-8713, a resolution opposing House Bills 4729, 4730, 4731, and 4732. I placed this on the agenda after we had consultation with both the treasurer and the clerk, but I figured since we have them here, if I can get a motion to refer this to full board, I will have Mr. Owens speak to all of these.
Matusik moves.
Support.
I have a motion by Commissioner Matuzak, supported by Commissioner Wallace. Mr. Owens,
Pulling up my phone, trying to figure out what the bills are.
these are the Zillow bills
Um,
that, if I am understanding correctly, Wayne County and Oakland County have already passed these resolutions.
to oppose.
They've already passed resolutions to oppose at the county level?
Right.
Okay.
That's why
Would it work for the board if we got a written report just on the bills and some of the different folks involved? I don't have anything in front of me on the bill specifically.
well, we have speakers on it, so we'll start with Commissioner Sabatini.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to be added to the resolution if I could. This is news to me. I certainly oppose this. I wasn't even made aware of it. And this is obviously a detriment to us if something like this does go through. So, thank you, Chair.
They are selling our info, to put it short. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to piggyback on Commissioner Sabatini a little bit about not knowing about it, I think you didn't know about it, Commissioner Sabatini, because it's been sitting dead in committee since last March/April. So I guess my question is to the timing of it. Why is this coming up now? Why didn't this come up a year ago? With what Gary said, he's spot on. There's maybe 8 to 10 days, session days left in Lansing till the end of the term. I'm just curious on the timing of why this is coming up now.
I have no idea, and if he can't answer that, I sure can't.
It certainly isn't on the radar of things to be discussed in Lansing this year, if that helps.
Thanks.
Commissioner Farrington.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm going to do what I've done all the time with this. It's not our issue, guys. If the clerk and the treasurer want to oppose it, they can write a letter in opposition. For us to sit here and say we oppose it when no one here even knows what it is, I think it's just silly. I mean, when you're up there, you know this, Chair, and Phil knows it because you're boss and I know it. You have meeting after meeting after meeting with people such as Gary and Sam, and to get a full breadth of what it means at a big scope, not just reading the title and going, ooh, that's a bad thing or a good thing. For us to go in there and say it because the treasurer and the clerk want to, and you know, Tony's a very good friend of mine, but that's his issue. He can write a letter in opposition. For us board members to say we have an opinion on this, I think is silly when we don't even know what it is. And what it is, basically, I believe Zillow's already doing it, so it's not something new. What it is I believe, because I asked Diana this morning, is the clerks around the state are going, wait a minute, someone like Macomb charges 3 cents a file. There was some odd county in the north, I think this is fine, it's $20 a file. And Zillow's going, wait, we want even across the board. And so the clerks are rebelling and saying, no, we don't want to give you it's all public information. It's just them gathering it for Zillow so the public can see it. So that reasoning is not why I would be against this. My reasoning is because we don't even know what it is, and to sit here and, put out a proclamation saying, yeah, we oppose this when no one even knows what it is, to me is kind of silly. So I've had that speech before. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I took the resolutions. I asked my Representative Sowerby about it, what was going on with it. It's pretty clear to me that this is a move by Zillow to reduce our revenues in this county, so I do think it is our issue. It wants records at a discount rate, and they shouldn't be getting a discount more than an individual gets a discount. Same price for everybody, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm in support of this resolution.
Point
Thank you,
of
Mr. Chair.
clarification, is it a discount from Macomb or across the state? I don't know the answer. What did he say?
Each, according to Mr. Sowerby, each clerk is negotiating their own, and Zillow would like to do, as you said,
Right, I
across
thought
the
Macomb was
board.
already on the low end though, so I don't know if it reduces it from Macomb is my point.
It does reduce it from Macomb.
It does, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Farrington, maybe they should have added your wife to the bill and then we vote on the resolution. Because I remember that vote. And I fully agree with you, Commissioner Farrington, because I feel like this would open up other resolutions to oppose other bills that we don't necessarily agree with or that we support. So, when do we draw the line? But I think for this particular bill, because it does affect Macomb County and our clerks do, I, will be willing to support it under that aspect. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I know Commissioner Kleinfeld is next. I'm sure she's going to advocate her position that has been advocated on numerous occasions. So, Commissioner Kleinfeld?
The local control?
That's correct.
Yes, that is part of what I was going to say. Number one, the standard, in my opinion, and everybody has a right to their own opinion, the standard on whether or not we do something of this nature is, does it affect counties? Because if it does that does give boards kind of a standing. And then, of course, absolutely, thank you, Commissioner Haw, or Chair Haw. This is a local control issue, and Lansing spends an awful lot of time getting together with folks like Zillow and other companies or other entities and determining what locals should do and how they should negotiate. So I do support this, and obviously it's going to be up to each commissioner what type of resolutions they believe that the board should get involved in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Kleinfeld took much of what I was going to say, actually. I'm in favor of local control, and this actually moves the control out of the county's hands into the state's hands, and I would like to see more things local control. So I will be supporting this resolution, and because I believe it does affect us, because it will be telling us how to do business. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for that opinion. Seeing no other speakers, please vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're happy to take credit for killing the bill. That's already dead. Thank you.
Motion passes 12-1. Commissioner Farrington voting no.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is public participation. This is the opportunity for public. Nope. Did I miss one? 9B. Oh, yeah, that's an important one. Thank you.
Thank you, all.
Have a good afternoon, you too.
Next item is Resolution 2022-8728, ratifying and confirming adoption of enrolled Ordinance 2022-02. Motion to recommend to full board.
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Van Sickle, supported by Commissioner Zinner. Chair Brown, would you like to speak to this?
It's self-explanatory. It's just reaffirming the resolution we passed previously on compensation ordinance.
Let me see if I have any speakers here. I do. Okay, this thing's not working. Yeah, I'm hitting detail. Oh, here it comes. Commissioner Sabatini. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple questions. First, did our attorney review this, or did Corp Counsel review this?
Yes, our attorney, Pete Webster.
Did Corp Counsel review this at all? They did not. Okay. Secondly, is this reaffirming the vote that we already made at the previous date?
Yes.
So basically, whatever that vote was at the previous date will then pass through with this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Chair. I just need clarification. So we took a vote, whenever it was, back in the spring, I seem to remember, and there was some problem with the vote, which is why this is coming up. I believe it was the same problem as with the smart vote. There weren't enough people here to cast the vote.
That's correct. Yes.
That's my understanding as well.
Okay, in rereading this, I'm a little concerned about the part that it had to be done before candidate filing day. If we're reaffirming now, how do we reconcile those two dates?
We're reaffirming the fact that the board passed a resolution on compensation.
Okay, I'm not sure that works. I voted no the first time. I'm probably going to vote no the second time. So I'm just, that struck me as that seemed like a pretty hard and fast rule. And now we're going back to redo something that we didn't do right the first time. I'm just a little concerned about how that stands. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
I know that the chair has had the benefit of counsel on this issue, but the rest of the board has not had the benefit of counsel. And I know that we do have time to address it. And I would like to actually hear from both councils, our council and Corp council, on the issue. I don't know if it's possible that we could do that before voting on it for full board. So like maybe if we didn't forward it to tomorrow, maybe if we forwarded it to the next full board, we would get a chance to have a closed session with the different attorneys to discuss it, to discuss what their thought process is relative to it. That would make all of us more comfortable because we're not approving it today. We're just forwarding it to a full board date certain. I just want to know what everybody thinks about that.
I have no objection to that if that's the will of the body. We can certainly do that. There's no rush. So we've got some time to do that, so.
Commissioner Song.
I was wondering how this resolution vote is different from the other ones where we had to do a reconsideration. So if you could
This
clarify
is a new
that.
resolution. So it's a new resolution. It's not considering the same question. It's a reaffirmation of a previous question.
A reaffirmation of a previous question or a previous ordinance that we passed?
Reaffirmation of a previous ordinance. Those are good questions, and I'm not an attorney, and so I think we'll have a question. We can have that discussion next month.
Okay, thank you.
So without objection, the chair will forward it.
Yes. I'll make a motion that we table this item, moving forward until we have postponing it until we have the opportunity to have legal counsel, both ours and court. But we have to have the mover and the second on the first motion withdraw their request, which was Commissioner Van Sickle and Commissioner Zinner. Okay, now a motion to table until we've had an opportunity to have private consultation with legal counsel. I'll make that motion.
Support.
That was Commissioner Van Sickle. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, if I may, both independent and corp counsel review.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 13-0.
Thank you. See, I knew we were going to get into public participation right away anyway. So the next item is public participation. The opportunity for public participation is for those who wish to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any issue. Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, We will move to commissioners' comments. I'm trying to get there. I see no speakers under commissioners' comments. Next item is closed session. Closed session to discuss pending litigation, Poole versus Macomb County, United States District Court case number 19 CV 13544, Morrow versus Hawks. Also to discuss settlement agreements, Zachary Poole versus Macomb County, United States District Court case 19 CV 13544.
Move to closed
Wait,
session.
we got one more.
Oh, we got one more?
Yes. Settlement agreement, Morrow versus Hawks, Macomb County Circuit Court case 221419CH.
Now I move to closed session.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Matuzak, supported by Commissioner Nard to move into closed session. Please vote.
Motion passes 13-0.
Support to refer to full board the recommendations of legal counsel. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Chair, who made those motions?
I thought we started that.
That was to
Okay.
go. I'll make the
Then I need a
motion.
motion.
I'll make the motion.
I thought I heard Kraft in 17.
I have a Kraft and Sabatini have made the motion to refer recommendations to full board. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please vote.
He was convincing though, I thought.
Yeah, I got quite a few votes on that. too.
Motion passes 13-0.
Okay, seeing no other business, next.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we had Commissioner Romano, Commissioner Nard second. Please vote.